Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm so glad you did. Obviously, you're interested in the title, A 5-Year Pregnancy? Really? Well, I did find information on a 5-year pregnancy. This information is available to anybody who's willing to look for it. You can see it here, Journal of Royal Society of Medicine. The website is right up here. Sorry. Oops. Well, in that area. I just want to quickly go over this. You can definitely look this up and read it fully for yourself if you're interested. But let me just go ahead and cover a 5-year pregnancy. So this was actually written by Pierre, and I don't want to butcher this last name here, so I won't. But he was a French Renaissance writer. He published a long and richly illustrated manuscript written in beautiful italic script. It was published in Paris, but in the previous winter, this French Renaissance writer traveled to England to present a specially prepared dedication manuscript of his work to Queen Elizabeth I, who is said to be delighted by the gift. The title of his work can be translated into English as Amazing Stories. There are many stories of monsters, including one with the nose of an ox, the trunk of an elephant, the eyes of a cat situated above his navel, and many, many, many more. The stories are divided into 32 chapters, and chapter 16, the subject of this paper, is concerned with 3 tales of childbirth. The first story is a story of a German woman who gave birth in 2 separate deliveries to 22 children, 11 in the first pregnancy, 9 in the second. The second story is about a certain lady of the streets who gave birth to 7 male children all at once. Out of horror for her sinful life, she threw all the babies into the water just when King Algimond happened to be walking alongside the river. The king used the shaft of his hunting spear to fish out one of the babies out of the river, took it home, and brought it up. Later, this sole survivor became the second king of Lombardy, and each there is just the bare story with no supporting evidence, and one would have to be very gullible to believe either of them. But then you come to the third childbirth story, and you expect it to be an obvious myth, but it does provide exact dates, named people and places, and enough clinical detail to give the story a ring of truth. The more I read it, the more convinced I felt that this one could not be dismissed as a myth. I myself, not only is this person who is writing this article and posting it here on the internet, but I myself do agree that this story does have some kind of a ring of truth. So this is the story. Excuse me. The woman in question was Marguerite, the wife of George Walliser, who lived in 16th century Vienna. In 1545, she became pregnant and felt the normal movements of the baby during pregnancy. When she went into labor with furious and sharp pain, she called her mother and some midwives. During the long labor, they heard a noise and a commotion like a cracking inside of the mother, and thereafter the fetal movements ceased. They assumed correctly, it seems, that the baby had died. The midwives used all their skills but failed to deliver either the baby or the placenta. Some days later, feeling her pains return, Marguerite summoned a series of most eminent doctors from far and wide, imploring their help. The doctors merely gave her a series of drugs, but with no effect. Marguerite therefore resolved to let nature take its course, and bore with exceeding pain for the space of 4 years this dead corpse in her stomach. In the 5th year, she finally persuaded a surgeon to open her up and remove the child, which was half rotted away. The operation took place on the 12th of November in 1550. Marguerite soon recovered and was so full of life and so healthy that she can still conceive children. This was back in 1559. So let's just take a look here at why they think that this has a ring of truth. It says, so is this all a myth? Perhaps not, because there may be a credible explanation. Marguerite's ordeal may have been due to an abdominal ectopic pregnancy. Most ectopic pregnancies occur when the fertilized ovum becomes implanted in the fallopian tube, and a tubal ectopic pregnancy almost always dies after 2 or 3 months of gestation. But just occasionally, the fertilized ovum becomes implanted in the wall of the abdominal cavity. Sometimes it is thought abdominal ectopic pregnancy starts with implantation into the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube and then migrates to the abdominal cavity and invades the peritoneum secondarily. Although abdominal ectopic pregnancies are rare, there are many cases on record. Professor James Drift of the University of Leeds tells me he has dealt with 3 abdominal ectopic pregnancies in his career. It may be that Marguerite's dead baby was never delivered vaginally because it was never in the uterus. Being shut off, so to speak, from the outside world, a dead baby could have escaped being the source of an infection. The illustration in figure 1 that accompanies this story, and all the illustrations are, of course, clearly constructed from the narratives and not done from life. It shows a surgeon standing with a huge knife in his hand beside his patient. The patient, Marguerite, is sitting up in bed and looks remarkably undisturbed, considering she has a large vertical incision in her abdomen, through which one can see the head and shoulders of a half-rotted away baby. In a bowl by the bed are bits of hands and feet that were presumably removed by the surgeon. Again, this baby was presumed to already have been dead. So, this is the picture. Readers may wonder why the doctors who were called in did nothing except give ineffective drugs. The answer is that until the late 17th century on the continent of Europe and the early 18th in Britain, childbirth was seen as a social occasion and not a medical one. The knowledge of childbirth, normal or complicated, possessed by physicians and surgeons in the 16th century was extremely primitive. Only midwives possessed some expertise in normal and abnormal childbirth. In this case, when a surgeon finally agreed to operate, he did not perform a cesarean section. He simply opened the abdominal wall and promptly saw and removed the remnants of the baby. The placenta would not have been a problem because in abdominal ectopics, if the baby dies, the placenta soon shrivels and can be left intact. This one had 5 years to shrivel. In any medical event such as this, which took place so long ago, there can never be certainty about a diagnosis. But in this case, there is at least a possibility that Marguerite of Vienna was an early instance of a very rare complication, an abdominal ectopic pregnancy, that was successfully dealt with by an operation 5 years later. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you learned something new. Stay well, stay blessed, friends. Bye.